Hi, I'm Belinda, the Director of the Institute of Personal Care Science, and I get asked a lot of questions about using Sucragel and Sapogel. First, let me just start by saying these are very special but also innovative materials that enable you to create some incredibly beautiful sensory finishes to finished products. It will also help you make these really viscous oily gels, and depending on the oil you use, they can be completely transparent. As you can see, there's no drips, no running at all from this oily gel. These materials can also be used to make your oil to milk cleansers, both in a semi-liquid or in a balm or gel-like form. They can also be used to make emulsions. So from one material you get a lot of versatility, but because it's different, you have to process it differently. You also have to formulate with it differently. So in this video, I wanted to show you how to overcome some of the common issues people experience when they're first using a Sucragel or a Sapogel. And this is from my experience too, because when I was first introduced to these materials, I thought, wow, these things look amazing. And if you treat it like a standard material, you'll get disaster samples. They just won't work. So you need to process them in a very special way to get the best results out of them. But once you know how to process them, trust me, it's really easy. It just might take you a couple of goes to get it just right. And hopefully this video will help you get the best results faster, because I'll show you how I process them, and you'll see just how easy it is and what to look for to make sure it's processing right as you go along. So you can get different versions of the material. You can get an AOF version, a Sucragel CF version, and Sapogel Q is one of their latest launches. They all need to be processed in a similar way, particularly if you're making an oily gel product. So I'm going to show you how to make this product today. This one was using jojoba oil. You can see I've got a beautiful golden color to it. Transparency isn't the greatest, so it does depend on which oil you use. You will get some really transparent effects, but still a beautiful product. Today I'm going to be showing you with apricot kernel oil, so you can see what sort of result you get with that. But you can of course mix it up with different esters or other plant oils for different results depending on what you want to create. Now the first thing that's really important is to have your Sucragel in one beaker and your oily substance in another beaker separately. Now normally you would be tempted to add the smaller phase into the larger phase, but you don't do that with the Sucragels. You actually need to add the oil phase into the Sucragel bit by bit. Now the reason for this is Sucragel doesn't actually form a gel. It actually creates a high internal phase emulsion. The external phase of the product is the Sucragel. It's water, glycerin and surfactant outside of the very large internal oil phase. So because we're forming this special type of product using this very special type of material, we need to process it differently to what you might be used to. So I'm going to get this ready to start stirring. One of the first tips I'm going to give you is to make sure that your propeller mixer, or if you're using a stick blender, you really need to be able to stir through the whole product. When it's only a small amount like this, start towards the top. Again, that's something you would normally not do, but it's a very special material. We're going to start with it mixing at the top, and you'll see I can move my beaker so I can stir the whole product if I want to. And then to this, I'm going to start adding my oil phase slowly. Now, one of the things I'm going to look for as I add it into the product is I want to make sure that I'm seeing this product look quite glossy before I make my next addition of oil. Now, by seeing this turn glossy, it means I've got a nice homogeneous mixture. You will see sometimes it looks a little curdled or it doesn't look like it's coming together. I simply increase the mixing speed and I make sure I'm stirring right through the whole product to incorporate the oil through the product, and you'll see it goes from looking curdled or separated to becoming that glossy appearance. So watch for those things as I stir the product and you'll see what I mean. Now they're your markers to make sure that the product's getting mixed properly. As you mix, especially in the lab, nothing wrong with having to adjust that propeller height to make sure that you can get to the surface of the liquid again. Again, this is not something we would normally do, but it works particularly well with the Sucragel. It does mean you get extra bubbles forming on the day, but these will come out over a couple of days without a problem. And I'm also just going to turn the speed up a bit now that I have more product to stir. I'm now at about 900 RPM using this propeller mixer. Notice how I'm mixing through the whole of the product. Again, it introduces air on the day, but it helps make sure you've got effective mixing. In larger production vessels, you don't need to necessarily mix to the surface like this, but having sweeper blades is important so that you can get good product turnover. That's what I'm really aiming for here, is to get complete product turnover through the propeller mixing. And as I add more of my oil phase, I'm going to turn that speed up more. I'm now at 1000 RPM. Again, in a production vessel, I would still add small portions at a time, but using sweeper blades, I wouldn't have to adjust the height of the propeller mixer. I just need to make sure I'm getting really good turnover of the product in the vessel. Now hopefully you can see when I first add the oil, it's looking a little curdled, but then it becomes very smooth and glossy looking. That smooth or glossy look means I can add the next bit of oil. Until it goes smooth and glossy, I need to keep mixing. Just going to turn the speed up a bit now. I'm at 1200 RPM. And you can see I'm adding more and more oil each time now. I can start to add more oil because that internal phase emulsion has started to form. So now I can add more oil at each addition. Now I'm just going to adjust the height of the propeller stirrer, and you can see the product's nice and glossy. It looks a little curdled, so I just need to keep mixing. And you'll also see the viscosity starts to increase a lot. Now you can see the oil's actually as a separated phase, so I just keep mixing until it becomes all glossy and homogeneous. I'm just going to turn this speed up. I'm now at about 1700 RPM. The maximum this stirrer will do is 2000 RPM. And remember, if you're making a larger batch, it's all about making sure you've got high propeller speed and good turnover of product in the vessel. You can see it's looking a little separated. I just keep stirring. It'll go through a curdled phase and then it will look nice and glossy again, and that's when I know I can add more oil. Now I'm just going to give it a little bit of a stir just to make sure it's all mixed through. And there I have my beautiful oily gel. As you can see, different oils will have different effects on the way the finished product looks. So you can pick and choose whether you want a transparent product, translucent product. Again, I've got this lovely golden colour from jojoba. You can mix your oils, you can add esters into the Sucragel. You'll get fantastic results every time. Look how glossy that product is. That's how we know it's nice and homogeneous and stable. One of the great things about using a Sucragel or Sapogel is the innovative and different product types you can create. Just remember, it's not a standard gelling agent, which is why we have to treat it differently. And we also have to formulate differently with it. I've got some other videos where I use Sucragel and Sapogel, and no doubt you'll see more because I love this material. It gives me a totally different approach to formulation and the types of products I can create. Just remember a couple of really important rules. you need to start at a lower RPM, you need to be stirring with a propeller, and you need to make sure that you've got good product turnover in the vessel. Then you add your oil phase to the Sucragel or Sapogel in small proportions, especially at the start. Make sure you get good product turnover and mixing, and don't add more oil until that mixture looks nice and glossy. As you add more and more oil, you can add greater amounts of oil each time. Just make sure you're giving it a really good stir in between additions, and make sure it's really glossy before you add more oil. If it's not, just keep stirring. Turn up your RPM speed, make sure you've got good product turnover in that vessel, and it will come together and become glossy for you. A couple of things not to do with Sucragel. Don't add it the wrong way around. Don't add big proportions of the oil, especially at the start. And if something starts to look like it's going wrong, or it's separating, or it's curdling, mix. Stop adding oil. Definitely don't add any more oil until it starts to look glossy again. Make sure you give it a plenty of stirring between each oil addition, and it should come back together nicely for you. Well, there you go. That's how to use Sucragel. And I often get asked by people, how do I create some really different products? I've got to tell you, experiment with Sucragel and Sapogel, and you'll be amazed. It can create all different product types. Even if you have to buy a drum of the raw material, it's worth the investment, because you can make more than one product type from the material. You can make cleansers right through to moisturizers, oily gels, oils to milks, everything in between. And the suppliers of these materials have a lot of starting formulations for you to start from. Just remember, the processing is very important. Follow their instructions carefully to get the best results. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please leave any questions or comments below, and make sure to subscribe to receive notifications about all our videos. I did create this video because I get asked about this material a lot and how to solve some of the processing issues. So if you've got questions or topics you'd like me to film on, please leave them in the comments box below and I'll add them to my list. Happy formulating!